Hi, this is Kaery with Kaery Concealed in the Active Self-Protection Extra channel. And today I have had some questions for myself. And maybe y'all can help me out with this. But I've had some questions for myself about sight alignment and how we're teaching it and the words we're using and the pictures we're using to do that. So come on back and let's talk about it.
Palm pepper spray is next generation OC spray. It's hot at 1.4% major capsaicinoids, and its modular design means you can customize it exactly to you. 3 different setups, lots of different color combinations. You can make it exactly as you like. And the flip top safety prevents accidental discharges. It's 10 to 12 foot range and 25 half-second blasts. Make sure that you can keep that long range eye poke at long range. I trust Palm OC and I recommend it for everyone for self-defense.
Welcome back. So I have been working on a couple of, I'm preparing to go to the Active Self-Protection National Conference in Kansas and the Guardian Conference in Oklahoma. I leave in about 10 days. And I've been working on some more brief performance enhancement imagery scripts that I can use in a conference style class. And one of the things that occurred to me, I don't know why it did because it really doesn't have to do with the exact topic, but it's about imagery. But I began thinking about how to describe in the script that will be part of the imagery session that we do, how to describe sight. I call it a movie picture or sight picture. And the reason I call it that is because for me, early on, I couldn't understand how, not a picture, a movie. I call it a sight movie. And the reason I call it a sight movie is when I first started shooting, I remember asking my dad questions. You know, is the front sight supposed to, I was as a kid, is the front sight supposed to move that much? Is the whole sighting system supposed to move that much? That sort of thing. And he never was worried about it or we didn't spend a ton of time talking about it. And he said, well, looking at your target, everything looks just fine. So I think you're doing great. And then I remember taking NRA classes and not to hit on NRA or USCC, it doesn't matter who. And I remember seeing in the books these pictures of perfect sight alignment. They'd have a blurry target and a perfectly crisp front sight and then a bit of a blurry rear sight. But everything was always perfectly aligned across the top, equal height, equal light, they would talk about. And what was confusing to me is when I was in the act of shooting, I don't ever recall my sight movie holding perfectly still the entire time. Something was always moving, whether it was my front sight moving back and forth in the window or like Miss Jamie Green says, this is Jack and this is his box and Jack lives in his box. So whether Jack was moving side to side in his box or up and down, or maybe he was going like this, or whether the whole sighting system, I mean, for me, it was more like Jack was moving a little bit and then the whole entire sighting system, if this was my, say there's a black dot right here, pretend, and this is my target area, my whole sighting system would be moving around. Not horrible, but it was moving, and it didn't look like any of the drawn pictures that were in the books. And so I had this idea, gosh, that's what it's supposed to look like. And I would be so slow to send it because I would wait until it was perfect height, equal height, equal light, perfectly aligned. But that's kind of an impossible standard. So it seems like I was thinking, man, those pictures that we're giving, especially new shooters, and some might say, well, they should be able to figure that out. I'm sure most people are a lot smarter than I am when it comes to that. But those pictures are what was in my mind. That's what I was imagining as I'm trying to get my sights to do the same thing. So one of the things I did recently, especially for newer shooters, I want them to understand that they don't have to have perfect equal height, equal light, they don't have to have perfect sight. They don't have to have a perfect movie picture or perfect sight movie in order to get their hits. And there's a great video. I don't even know who it's by, but what I did is I took screenshots from the video, and these screenshots the individual shooting a plate rack, and they're shooting all the way into the end of the plate rack. And I can put a link to this in the description to a PDF of this. And one of the things that I found helpful was showing especially my beginning students, that yeah, in this example right here, everything's aligned really nicely. The front sight is centered. Jack is nice in the middle of his box, and he's even in the middle of that little target there. In this one, he's a little off. He's a little off to the right, Jack in his box, and he's pretty much in this. But look at this one. And every single one of these is a hit, though. So even though the front sight is high, not perfectly centered, even though it's not in the center of that, the thing it's shooting at, the target, that's what that's called, then it's still getting hits. And then we have a couple where they're misses. But showing students that you can send it on that, depending on your distance and what you're doing. And then I have the exact same thing down here for dot shooters to be able to see the same thing. So there's where the dot's lifting from in that example. And this one's beautifully lined. They're center of everything for the most part, but here not so much and here not so much. And so it's okay to send it even though things aren't perfectly aligned. So it's just made me think recently, are we doing our learners a disservice, especially in the beginning, by even showing them any pictures whatsoever of, perfect equal? Are we helping them by saying equal height, equal light? How are we helping them? I even know, I know some people might refer to it as like build the castle or build the turret, those sorts of things. That's great. The question is, does a castle move? And maybe it's not a sticky point for some learners, but for a lot of mine, it has been. It's been a huge sticky point for them because they wait and wait and wait and wait until everything's perfectly aligned. And then as soon as it's perfectly aligned, rather than doing a careful trigger press in a precision environment, they're wham. And why are they sending it right away? Because it took forever for it to get perfect. Once it got perfect, they wanted to send it right away. So anyway, I've been thinking about that a lot the past couple of days. And it's just kind of an interesting thing. I've tried to be more mindful about the images that I'm putting in my learners' minds with the pictures I show and maybe the posters I have up at the range for them to see. One of the things, I'm sure you guys have seen this or heard this before, but I know a lot of people, when they're teaching, they'll spend a ton of time on eye dominance and teaching what the sight or the movie picture should look like. Rather than doing that, I switched a long time ago to, and I just did this out of desperation, but I explained to my students, hey, this is Jack, and Jack lives in his box. And so go ahead and put Jack in his box and aim at the target. So we're in the classroom with a SIRT pistol, or sometimes we're out on the range. And I'll say, all right, can you see Jack in his box? Yeah. All right, so I'm gonna put something over your rear sight and just let me know if you can still see Jack in his box. And so then I just put a magazine or something flat across the top so they can still see right through the cutout there. And most of the time, I would say probably 85% of the time, I'll say, once I have this across the top, I'll say, okay, are you still able to see Jack? And yes, probably 85% of the time, yes, I can still see Jack, no problem. Great. But in that 15% of the time when they can't see Jack, I know then that, oh wait, no, I can't see him. And I'll lift the magazine off again. And then I'll say, okay, find Jack again and get him in his box. Great, he's in the box. Okay, now let's do that again. And most of the time, that's all it takes is just, oh gosh, no, where did he go? And then, well, let's find him again. They find him, and then they're just fine. Every now and then, I would say like maybe 1 to 2% of the time, I will have a learner that has something going on, whether it's cross dominance and they haven't figured that out. I'm not saying they figure out cross dominance on their own, but in life, if they've been batting or throwing and catching or doing just about anything, their body has compensated for that. So I don't like to bring those things up until I know they're a problem. Why introduce them to something that isn't even a problem, especially in the beginning? I don't want to overwhelm them with anything. If they're having trouble getting their hits, well, then we do a little bit of investigating. But once we figure out that, yeah, they can see Jack in his box, and they can even see Jack in the box when I put something across the rear sight, the top of the rear sight like that, so that I know for sure they're looking through the middle there, that works well. And with a red dot, I just ask them, are you able to see your dot on the target? Yes, awesome. And look away for a minute. Now look back. Is your dot still there? Or I'll say, bring your gun down a little bit to low ready, rest, relax. Okay, now present it back up, and then they'll find it again. So anyway, I don't have anything important to share other than I just don't know that I'm doing my learners a service by showing them pictures of perfectly equal height, equal light, and saying that this is what the ideal is. Because yeah, this is ideal, but we're biological beings with biological processes, and holding perfectly still is not something that we're capable of doing. And so it's always going to be moving to some degree. And I just want to make sure my students understand that from the beginning, rather than shooting for a few years and always trying to wait to send it until they get that perfect movie going. So that's all I have today. Thanks for joining us, and talk us in the comments. Let us know how you figure out this topic and how you share it with others. All right, we'll see you next week.